I spoke with Michael Beinhorn recently, and he said that when he was recording Super Unknown, Chris Cornell would like to be basically completely alone when he's recording vocals. Like he wants nobody there.
Yeah.
Was there anything like that with Benjamin, or did he not care if people were around?
If I wasn't there, he wouldn't sing.
Huh.
I mean, it would always be one of those things. And I stood up in the studio a lot with Ben and mouthed the words to get timing. So I would do that all the time.
With all three records?
Hell yeah.
That's cool,
No,
man.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I would conduct with my hands, you know.
That's awesome.
Because we could always see each other.
Musically, how is he like in the studio? So, for instance, I spoke with Mike Frazier recently, and he said that when Brian Johnson would record vocals, Brian Johnson would actually physically hold the mic. Another guy I spoke to said Perry Farrell would actually run around the studio when he's singing. Was there anything peculiar about Benjamin in the studio?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody is different. And it's funny. With singers, every singer has a window in their day where they're great. And, you know, you got to be careful. I mean, you try and get a singer in the studio at 10 o'clock till noon. You know, and when I say a window, nobody can sing for longer than 3 or 4 hours. Not really. I mean, they might tell you they can. I know Bruce Springsteen does a 4 hour show. So, you know, but I don't think I'll tell you my Breaking Benjamin Bruce Springsteen story, which is pretty amazing.
That's cool.
Because I have one. But with Ben, there was a window. It was usually like 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon till 7. And then maybe after dinner, sometimes 8 till 11. In regards to where we recorded, we tried recording with him singing with a microphone. We put a big foam thing around it in the control room and let him try and sing. And then we had him in the big room. We had him in the small room. And I think for the most part, we just left him in the big room in the center. And the one thing, though, and it's very dangerous, when you're playing in A sharp and the guitars and the bass, or imagine the bass tuned to A sharp drop, you know, these notes don't exist through headphones, you know. So what I'm saying is that when you're wearing headphones, it's very hard to make out the tonality, you know, as opposed to listening with speakers and getting the bottom end and the definition. One of the things I think we did was put some clean guitar tracks on there or acoustic guitar tracks, so the band could sing along, because A sharp and that kind of robust singing is difficult to do. In Ben's case, I would say a lot of it was instinct, because he knew and had written these melodies where to go instinctively, and his pitch was pretty good. Having said that, we did do multiple takes. You know, we do a set of 10 of a section, let's say a verse, and then we would stop for 10, 15 minutes and then do it again and then comp together the best vocal take. So even though, say, the whole song was sung in 2 hours, you know, we would go through each track and audition certain lines or certain timings that we felt suited the song more. So am I going to tell you that he didn't sing a whole verse or a whole chorus? That would be a lie too, because sometimes it would just be one of those magical moments where we would just sing and we go, that take, you know, of that whole chorus was insane. But cool. It's very difficult for anybody to sing a whole song from top to bottom, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
In a once in a lifetime performance with timing and tuning and not get, you know, any mistakes. That's kind of dumb. In some instances where it was like attitude-y, we did take the whole song and, you know, but we would always go back and spend time comping things together.
That's interesting. So when it came to Ben, was he the kind of singer who, like, let's say he'd sing for 20 minutes, 30 minutes straight, take a break, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or would he go for 2 hours straight?
I would never do that to anybody. I knew better. And once you go for 2 hours straight, you're burning somebody out. You know, it's never going to work. So I would say 30 minutes, you know, 30 to 40 minutes of a verse or a chorus or a bridge, and then stop for 10 minutes and then repeat. Sometimes you sing the song 4 or 5 times, you know. Now also when you're dealing with tape, it's a little bit different. And by that time, I think we were on Pro Tools. So we had the ability to be able to audition different takes. You know, we would bring them up on different faders.
That's cool.
And audition the different takes.
Interesting. And like when it came to what we're listening to on the records, is his voice doubled or is that usually like a single track?
Ben loved doubling. I mean, that was his favorite thing. The more, the merrier.
Hmm.
The problem with that, in Ben's case, though, for me, was that his voice was so identifiable and so powerful. A double would thicken it, but sometimes when it got very emotional, when you double something when it's emotional, it takes away the intimacy because you've got three people being intimate with you, you know, and trying to match yourself perfectly. If you match yourself perfectly, it phases, you know, it phases itself. So you start to lose things. So I would say I was extremely delicate when I would bring those double tracks up. Where I put them was really important, you know, because the minute you go left, right, which is where the guitars are and the drum room mics are, you're creating sort of this left, right, vocals and drums and cymbals and guitars. And so it gets a little confusing. So I started to move everything in, you know, to 10, 10 and 2. And that way we could control it a little bit more. And it sounded a little bit more organic and natural to me.
That's so cool. So, you know, I spoke a couple times with Jonathan Plum, who worked with Alice in Chains, really nice guy. And he said that one of the interesting things about Lane Staley is that Lane had an easier time doing the screaming vocals than the quieter vocals. Lane's just naturally loud, so that works for him. When it came to Ben, was it easier for him to do like the heavier stuff or the quieter stuff?
Well, you got to understand, Ben was not your normal kind of singer. His influences were so far and wide. I mean, one minute you'd go to Korn, the next minute you could go to the Deftones, the next minute you're Nirvana, and then you'd go to Maynard with Tool. So Ben had a very, very good grip on all of those four characters and found a way to make his own sound out of those influences. So the answer to your question is each song was bespoke and sort of written and sang to what the song was asking for. Ben had the ability to do a song like Forget It and then scream on another song, or do Rain, which is a nursery rhyme, and then do Cold. So the beauty was that there was many influences. You know, I would say for me, at least, each record was different because each record in Ben's life was a different era. At the time, you know, Ben was struggling with self-medicating, with sort of Dear Agony being his record that he made, you know, with no self-medication. So I would say that the first record was tough, you know, that way, and there was a lot going on. But Ben was one of those artists that was able to function quite well for the most part. The truth is that you know, a lot of musicians, especially at that time, did a lot of things, and you know, their music was incredible, and we never questioned it. In fact, some of my favorite, you know, artists died of heroin overdoses. But that's a whole different kind, and you know, there was no drugs. It was all drinking. I knew how to handle it because I'd done this. I'd been down this road before with many artists. And the whole thing about it is, if it starts to affect the session, and if the music starts to suck, you basically got to pull the plug because you're just wasting everybody's time and money. And in Ben's case, I would say he was quite able to function most days. Some days he wouldn't show up for a couple of days. You know, we'd have to do something else because he got himself worn down. And he was also a guy that was into video games. He was playing video games up, you know, until 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, so, you know, it was you know, they were long working days, long days of singing and playing guitar, and then, you know, and then some drinking, and then some more playing, then some video games and more drinking. So this went on for quite a while. But everybody really was happy with the results. I mean, the band, the management, and the label. So there was no reason to kind of like, you know, stop the session for any reason because everything was moving along. You know, Ben loved to repeat. If we did something and it worked, he was very superstitious. On the We're Not Alone record, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I was wearing this jean jacket because I'm Canadian. You know, you wear the Canadian tuxedo back in those days. Anyway, I love this jacket. And like, I wouldn't really wash it. It didn't smell, but it was worn in and kind of ripped in a couple places. And Ben always looked at me just like he would look at me and go, I love that jacket. Anyway, one day I didn't wear the jacket.
Uh-oh.
And he lost it. You better, I'm not doing anything today. You're going to have to wear that jacket again tomorrow. And I'm like, oh. So he was very superstitious about certain things.
Now I got to jump in there really quickly. Were you able to at least wash the jacket or no?
I did wash it. Yeah.
Okay.
I did. Well, I think that's why I didn't wear it, because it was being washed. You know, a jean jacket, you don't wash it every month. You wash it. Well, you like that look. You like the faded. You know, you wait till it's nice and grimy, and then you wash it.
Yeah, it's that Canadian shine.
It's got the Canadian, you know, and I, being a very true Canadian, I wanted to represent.
That's it, man.
So I, get back to the jacket. So I just want to give you an example of some of that. Well, there was a lot more than that he was superstitious about, but I was okay with it. In the studio, you need an edge. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
They say he's the greatest hockey player. He is, I think, the greatest hockey player. But the greats have an edge. There's something about what they do that gives them an edge. And in Wayne Gretzky's case, he wore his sweater over the top of his pants on the left side, so that when he skated, they didn't have to wonder who the player was that they were going to pass it to, because you want Wayne to get the puck, and you want him at center ice, and you want him to go straight into the other end and score. But that was an edge. And so in the studio, certain people I'd worked with over the years, I'd noticed a lot of them would do something different, whether it was putting down their own rug from home with candles from their house, or an incense smell that they loved, or their favorite beer, or a bottle of Southern Comfort. It didn't matter. There was something in there to comfort them. And the lighting had to be a certain way. And each artist had a thing for how they wanted to. Somebody once wanted all the lights on, and no candles. And this song, I want it to be bare, and I want to feel like everyone's looking at me, and I'm, so I call that, Michael Jordan had an edge with his shoes. I'm just telling you how when you get into the studio, you look at anything you can grab onto to boost your performance.
No, for sure.